The area that I have probably been most refined in as of late, and even still ongoing, is the area of parenting, specifically just fatherhood. I have a 5-year-old son, Alexander the Greatest, we call him. But yeah, just sometimes I love him so much, and I want so much for him, and want to be a good father to him, that sometimes that gets in the way of me actually doing the thing that I want to do. Right, right. So what I wanted to share, it's not self-help or anything like that. I mean, we all know that there's a ton of books out there that will tell you how to be the best parent. Podcasts. I mean, if you want those type of things, they are definitely out there. No, this is more so of, this is what I've learned about me, and hopefully my process of refinement can help you in yours. So the first thing that I kind of dealt with was, how do I push back against culture, right? Because society is saying one thing, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that society is telling my son. So how do I push back against that? I mean, how do I raise this young man to be everything that he's destined to be, when he's being raised in a society that seemingly promotes that it's cooler to break laws than it is to break bad habits? In a society that says, just do whatever it is that you feel like doing, and worry about it later, YOLO. So how do I push back against the culture? Simply, it's just by being there. I understand that my influence as his father has the potential to be the most powerful thing in his life, especially at 5 years old. Because, and I say that because my dad is still the greatest man that I know at 45. And so, yeah, I know that dads play a big influence in the life of their children, specifically their sons. And so, like, I have to just be there. If I'm going to push back against what society is saying, against what the culture is saying, what they're teaching him, then he needs to first partake at home. You know, like, when he goes out there into the world, like, he needs to already be armed and equipped with the ability to understand and discern what's truthful, what's real, and what's not. And I know that sounds heavy for a 5-year-old, but that's the reality that we live in. So I have to equip him at home first, and I do that by my presence. One of the ways that I do that is by my presence. And I'm not just saying that be there. I mean, actually be present in the moment. Because what I was finding is that a lot of times I was prioritizing the quantity of the minutes and the moments spent with him over the quality of the moments, right? So, sure, I was there, and he would be there as well, but I was usually working or on my phone or reading something, so he wasn't getting my full attention. He wasn't getting the same thing that I was requiring from him, right? Because when I address him, I expect his full attention, but I wasn't giving that to him. So I understand that in order for him to get what I feel and what I feel is necessary and what's right, I have to pour that in him at home. Because if I establish my presence in his life, it doesn't matter what they throw at him out there, because when he comes back in under my wife and I's roof, you know, like he understands that there's a standard, and there are certain things that you have to do here. So yeah, just learning how to push back against the culture by just being present, and again choosing the quality of moments over the quantity of moments. And another way that my wife included, we started choosing experiences over things, you know, instead of, and my son's real big into birds and dinosaurs. Instead of going out and buying him a dinosaur toy or a bird toy, let's go visit an aviary. Let's go to the science center. Let's learn about a dinosaur. That way it does two things. One, it gives him something that he can hold on to for the rest of his life. And then two, it allows us, specifically me as his father, to have that time with him, that quality time that we reference so often. So again, another instance of quality over quantity. So yeah, push back against the culture, but also one of the things that I came to understand in this refining experience is pushing back against tradition. Pushing back against tradition. Now listen, I think tradition gets a bad rap sometimes. There's a lot of good things that are passed down from generation to generation. Lord knows that I am the man that I am because my father was present, and he is, again, to this day, the greatest man that I know. Like, even at 45, if I call my dad, there are certain things that I'm expecting from him. I know it's a safe place. One, I feel protected in that space, and also I trust what it is that he's gonna give me. But even with that said, I am now understanding that everything I got does not translate. Everything that I was given does not translate to me being a father to my son. Again, there's a 40-year age gap between the two of us, right? And so one of the things that I had to learn is, how do I navigate, how do I bridge that delta between 5 and 45? Because a lot has happened since I was his age. And so how do I bridge that delta, that gap? And so, of course, you lean on tradition for that, right? You go back to the things that you know. You go back to the things that you were taught. Well, what I'm learning is that some of those things are double-edged sword, right? Like, well, tradition is a double-edged sword. Some of it's good, some of it's not. And so, like, things that comes to mind is, you know, a conversation I had with Alexander's godfather. He and I were just talking about being good fathers, and one of the things that came out of that is that, like, sometimes we overdo it. We really don't understand the why behind what it is that we're doing. We just do it because that's what we know to do. That's what we've been taught to do, but we never stop to ask ourselves why. And so what I've learned from that conversation is to sometimes question myself, question my own behaviors, question why I do things as a dad. And for example, when he's walking in the grass, why am I telling him to get back on the sidewalk? You know, like, when will he have another opportunity to go out there and be in the grass? And the reason I'm not in the grass is because I was molded and taught, don't go in the grass, you know, and you didn't question your elders or adults. And I think there's validity into that. Please don't misunderstand. But at the same time, when will he have another opportunity to play in the grass or to be in the grass? And maybe there's something in the grass that is calling him there that I didn't experience because I wasn't allowed. And so part of this whole pushing back against tradition, I've learned that he doesn't have to be me. Right? He doesn't have to be who I am. What he wants to do when he grows up, he wants to be an ornithologist. And so, because he's into birds, so he wants to study birds. That's where his interest lie now at 5 years old. At 5 years old, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. And part of the reason for that is because, like, I just wasn't introduced to that at 5 years old. Again, I have two wonderful parents, almost 50 years of marriage, but and did a great job with us growing up. But again, they were young parents at time. I mean, they were young parents, so their understanding and their resources to do some of these things were not just there. So, like, not blaming them at all, but at the same time, the reality is I wasn't given these opportunities, right? And so now, because his upbringing and my upbringing are so different, sometimes he does things that really, really bother me. To no fault of his own. It's probably not him. Well, I know it's not him. It's me. And so I have to question myself, why does this bother me so much? And a lot of times what I come to the conclusion is that it bothers me because this was conditioned and programmed out of me, right? I was conditioned not to like this behavior. I was conditioned to say this is wrong, when really it's really not. And I'm not talking about behavior issues like screaming in the store. We're not going to tolerate that. You know, we're just not going to do that in the Winstead household. We're going to talk about it. We're going to do what we got to do to address that issue. But so not major behavioral issues, but just little things that are part of his makeup. And so why do I have an aversion to that? And again, I think part of the reason is because I was conditioned that way. Society dictated then that this is not what children do. You know, like in the name of preparation, you can't allow your children to do this because it's gonna produce this type of adult. And I come to the conclusion that's kind of backwards, right? Like, sure, there are things that just cannot happen, as I stated earlier. There are guidelines, there are baselines, there are standards that he must adhere to, because, again, I had to adhere to those. It's just the way of the world, right? And I appreciate my parents pouring that into me, and now I'm gonna pour that into him. But some of these things are solely on me, and what I've come to realize is that, you know, he is who I would have been had I been given the opportunity to be. Right? If society had said, you know, it's okay. You know, it's okay for you to think this way. It's okay for you to think beyond your community. It's okay for you to think that this is not right. It's okay for you to be this way. And so, like, what I have to do now is make sure that I'm not conditioning the personality out of my son. I'm not conditioning him to be me 2.0, because I think to a large degree, I've seen that too many parents do that, and truth to be told, that's what I was doing, and so, like, I have to push back against tradition a little bit. I have to allow him the space to be who he is and who he's gonna be, because I think that he is absolutely destined for greatness if dad can just kind of get out of his way and just allow him to be him. what I've come to understand is that, because for a long time, and I think there's validity to it, but for a long time, I didn't really understand why my wife would approach a situation one way and I would approach a situation another way. And again, I just came to the conclusion that, like, a lot of what she does is in the name of protection. A lot of what I do is in the name of preparation. But in this refinement period, I've had to question, what does preparation look like? What am I prepping him for? And should I even be prepping him, or should I be prepping the world for who he is as his father? Because again, I think that there's greatness all through him, and he's gonna, and every parent thinks that, but my son is destined for greatness, and it's tough to even say that, because, and that's another thing I had to learn, is that it's okay for him to be great, because for so often when other people would come and they would say, hey, your son's special, your son is great, because I was so uncomfortable with it, I would try to downplay it and be like, yeah, but you should see him at home, which is not necessary. It's okay for him to be great. And I had to learn how to be okay with that, without downplaying his greatness for the sake of myself and for the sake of others, to make them feel comfortable with it. And so again, just pushing back against tradition, pushing back against culture, pushing back against tradition. But if you get nothing else out of this, and the main thing that I've learned from this whole refining of my parenthood, my prowess as a dad, is that just keep pushing. You know, I'm not always going to get it right. There are going to be times that I'm going to be wrong, and he's going to know it. And even in those times, that's another thing. I've learned that it's okay. So if I'm wrong, one of the things I do, I go to my son, I apologize first, and I explain to him how I was wrong and why I did what I did, because what I don't want to create is my son seeing me as a godlike figure. I've dealt with that myself through no fault of my father. You know, like I did hold him in high esteem, and it was unfair to not only me, but him, because it didn't allow him the ability to just be human, you know, like to make mistakes and be flawed. And when it did happen, and not necessarily a flaw, but even when he got sick, like, it took some adjustment, it took some doing for me to wrap my mind around that this man that I love, this man that I've revered for so long, is sick. Like, he's just not able to do certain things anymore. And so I don't want my son to view me as a God-like figure. So I apologize to him. That's something else that I've learned to do. But yeah, just keep pushing. No matter how tough it gets, just keep showing up. Like, and that's what I learned. We have had some tough moments as a father and as a son, my son and I. But that's still my guy. You know, I still love him. He still loves me, because again, I'm gonna keep showing up. Being his dad is the one job that I cannot get fired from. And so regardless of what mistakes that I make, regardless of where I've misunderstood it before or where I messed up before, I'm just gonna keep showing up. I'm gonna keep pushing back against society and culture so he can get what I feel that he needs before he even gets out there. I'm gonna keep pushing against tradition so I can keep refining me, and I'm gonna keep pushing. you know, and I employ you to do the same thing. Just keep pushing, keep working on refining yourself. All right.